Good morning. Hello. Good enough. Good enough to start. Hey, did you do the thing about?
You know what happened? There's something weird about my email, and every once in a while I'll send an email and it goes into this outbox thing, and I don't realize it, and the person never gets it.
Do you want to spend an extra minute here, like almost nowish?
I kind of look like
You're going. Oh. Okay. We'll come back. We've only got one presenter, so come back around the midpoint, if you don't mind.
I'll come back at midpoint
Okay.
because I need to bring more coffee.
Oh, okay. Good morning. Oh boy, that's too loud. We don't have the walk-up music. Steve, can you play the walk-up music, please? Fresh out of walk-up music. In that case, we've got a very talented team over here. My name's Eric Owens-Whitmore. I'm one of the hosts of 1 Million Cups. You're all here actually for 1 Million Cups at Fat Pipe ABQ for the most part. So we want to thank you for coming to join us here at Fat Pipe ABQ. We meet here and sometimes we're on Periscope or some other kind of thing. That's amazing. We meet here every Wednesday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. To bring together entrepreneurs from throughout the community. And one thing, a couple of us, Dara and I, just had a chance to go out to Kansas City to talk with about 36 teams from around the country that organize these kinds of events. So I wanted to share a couple different notes from that. But basically, one of the things, it seems like we're doing really well. But one of the things that we also learned is, we want to keep things fresh and keep folks involved. A different thing that came up and has come up in conversations around town here in Albuquerque, but also is going on around the country, is the term entrepreneurship is sometimes it turns people off. How many people love the term entrepreneur and you recognize yourself as an entrepreneur? Great. How many people are like, yeah, I don't know if I'm an entrepreneur, but I have my own business? Okay. So clearly this is a great room of entrepreneurs. I will shut up about that. Moving on to the next thing. So there's over 70 communities around the country that do this 1 Million Cups event, and it's been really phenomenal. And that's a lot of growth in the past year and a half. But it's really phenomenal to see the way that it's really energized a lot of communities. There's some communities that, they don't necessarily, they're already hyper-connected. You see all the people that they need to see, when they get their coffee in the morning or whatever. But other communities are a little bit more spread out, or they're working in these different fields. So in places like Albuquerque, but also Fargo, a couple others around the country, 1 Million Cups I think has been really, really helpful in bringing the different kinds of people who do entrepreneurship together to make things happen. So we're really glad to have you here this morning. How many people, is this your first morning coming to 1 Million Cups? Excellent. We've got 2 returning first-timers. We've got a few others. If I can get from 1 or 2 of you who are your first time, can you tell us, what was it that brought you in the door today? Looking for money. Okay. See that guy? No, just kidding. Allison, I'm going to call you out. She's part of a team that's presenting, so that's a good thing to mention. So, as you've probably seen, we have all sorts of different kinds of presenters. Some places, they're only looking for the high growth. Well, one of the things we recognize in Albuquerque is that entrepreneurs and people who start and run businesses, they come really from all walks of life. There's all sorts of different kinds of businesses that are very, very important to our community, including nonprofits. So what we try to do when we have nonprofits is we have them talk a little bit about, how their business or how the organization works and how they make it sustainable. But we're also really glad to see that there's some nonprofits like the one you're going to be hearing from in a few minutes that are making a huge difference in terms of leadership around the country. And I haven't put their hashtag up, but I will in a second. So without further ado from me, let's see, is there anything else I'm missing, Steve? I will just say I want to thank Sabio Systems for being a sponsor. Sabio Systems, they're great. They're our coffee sponsor. There's really strong coffee this morning from Hartford Square. Don't forget to have 2 or 3 cups and we'll be bouncing off the walls. That's fantastic. Nothing goes better with donuts than coffee, so we want to thank Noventum for bringing those donuts today. And we've got a couple of other sort of special announcements. One shout out I'll make before handing it off. This will end soon, I promise. But, the folks from Soul Football Club packing the plaza this past week, I don't know how many folks, but what is it? 1,700 or more folks on the plaza to celebrate, to watch U.S. go down in defeat to Mexico. But a really, really great event. So we want to thank Lawrence and the folks who made that happen. So thank you very much. And I don't know, we'll even something there. Okay, the New Mexico. Let's see. New Mexico School Leadership. Can you tell us? So Tony Monfiletto. We don't have that. We don't have the title slide up here. You want it up? Yeah, let's do it. New Mexico Center for School Leadership. I was putting center in the wrong location. I've had the privilege of being part of a couple different sessions where they brought together people in technology and entrepreneurship and other areas to really start or to help form the core message or the core goals and objectives for different schools that are helping a variety of kids who don't necessarily have all the advantages some other folks have in town to have meaningful education that works with other folks and really starts them on a path to not only having a great high school education, but a great path to a future career. So, and the organization behind that doesn't really get enough credit. So I'm really, really happy to have Tony and his team here today to talk a little bit more about the New Mexico Center for School Leadership. Tony.
Thank you, Eric. So I'll start by introducing my two colleagues, Justin Traeger and Moises Padilla, and then Misty is somewhere out, and Misty is right here, so Misty Gallegos. So thanks very much for having us here today. I want to start our presentation with a story. About 8 years ago, I was invited to join a board meeting of the Associated General Contractors, the New Mexico Building Branch. And they were in a terrible situation around their pipeline, their workforce pipeline. They just didn't have enough people to fill the jobs that were coming. And they didn't have people with the right kinds of mental kind of attributes into the architecture, construction, engineering workforce. And what they had was really a situation where they were the employers of last resort in Albuquerque. So if you had a strong back, you could work in construction. And that was the image that they had. And they were really trying to get past that because the kind of work that they were doing was just much more sophisticated than the people were capable of who were coming into the sector. So when they described to me the kind of work that was coming their way in the next decade and how the industry was changing and evolving at this really rapid rate and the sophistication level of the companies involved, I realized that that was the most interesting problem solving happening in our city. I feel like the kind of intellect that it takes to do that kind of problem solving, to build a project on time, under budget, and satisfy a client so that they'll hire you again is really challenging work. And as I listened to them, I realized that the kind of work that they did was exactly the kind of work that kids would love to do in school every day if they just had the chance. So if their school felt like a design studio or a job site, they'd run to school every day because the problem solving, the engagement is so high, and that's what real life experiences do for kids. They turn them on. And because the learning is so deep and contextualized, it's an opportunity to turn on kids who never would have thought about careers in that sector or higher education. It's a chance to really give thrilling learning opportunities. So that experience, that one day 8 years ago, was the launching point to a network of schools that cover different sectors in our economy. So what we have here is in 2010, we created ACE Leadership High School, Architecture, Construction, Engineering. The second school is Health Leadership High School, and that's a partnership with UNM Health Sciences Center, UNM Hospital, First Choice Community Healthcare, and their campus is actually going to be on the campus of First Choice Community Healthcare in the South Valley. Then Tech Leadership High School, which is located in the Sandia Tech Park currently, and will be located in the International District ultimately, which is, if you all know where Trumbull Park is, Louisiana and Lomas, serving a community of kids who really need a great school in their community, a community with 50% dropout rate. The next school is Siembra Leadership, and Siembra is Spanish for to sow, to plant, to sow. And that's our entrepreneurship-focused high school, and that will be located in the South Valley. And Moises, here to my right, will be the leader of that school. And then we have a school coming in 2017 that's an undetermined focus area. Now, the way that we create these schools is, as Eric mentioned, the way that we create these schools is we reach out to people who work in the sector, and we ask them, what are the future skills that you'll need in your sector, and then help us create learning experiences for kids that are experiential, that will build those skills that you think you will need in the future. And they're all of these experiences that we have with employers are really about the unknown. Them telling us about what they don't know about the future, but what they will need to have on their team in order to address the unknown coming. So if you look at this photo here, this was from I don't remember when we did this now. With Monday. This was on Monday. We had a meeting with the Albuquerque Soul, and they had come here to 1 Million Cups and talked about their business dilemma about growing the Albuquerque Soul to become an MLS team and the need for Albuquerque to own the Soul in order for that to happen. And so when we were here, we thought, you know what, that's a great project idea for our entrepreneurship-focused high school, for Siembra. How can we partner with the Soul to build projects that would root the Soul in the community and get them on a pathway toward their future as an MLS team in Albuquerque? So this is a photo from a design session that we did where we identified project ideas that we would teach in the school. We'd have kids work through these project ideas, and then ultimately the Soul would come and judge kids' exhibitions or their projects, their ideas about how to go forward to make the Soul.
Hey there, it's Sean Perry.
Rooted in the community. Okay. So we office here at Fat Pipe, and we did that work right back there behind that wall over there. So, thank you. So, I want to next move on to what our values are in terms of our school development process. So, we have 3 values. We probably have more than that, but they really boil down into 3 values. And the first, and I think really critically important, is that we believe in the local wisdom. So, we think that the answers are not in Santa Fe. They're not in Washington, D.C. They're not in the international testing conglomerate that runs international testing. They're in Albuquerque. They're right here. And the wisdom about what kids should know and be able to do is in our own community. And if we go out and we ask the Albuquerque Soul, or we ask Sandia Labs, or we ask some of our other partners, construction firms, what does the future look like, and what are the skills, knowledge, and attributes that kids need to have to move into college and career, they can tell us. And that we don't need to ask people who don't live here about what the future is. And as a matter of fact, as an aside, people talk about being internationally competitive, that kids need to be internationally competitive. Well, that's true. But the firms here need to be internationally competitive. And if the firms here are internationally competitive, they can tell us what kids need to know and be able to do. We don't need to leapfrog over the employers here to go find out. We can ask them directly. And they're in our own neighborhood, and it's much more responsive than consulting folks who don't live here. The second point is that we work on behalf of the kids who need the best education. So in Albuquerque, we have a 62% graduation rate. It's nearly 40% of our kids not graduating high school. It's an unbelievable waste of talent in our own community. And those kids need to be turned on to learning. And the way to turn them on to learning is through thrilling learning experiences. We also believe in that if you're going to have high expectations for learning, you need to have social and emotional support that matches those high expectations for learning. So it's a very safe the culture of the schools is very safe, and we care deeply about the social and emotional well-being of kids in our schools, and we think that's necessary. If you're going to ask them to be vulnerable and take intellectual risks, you got to have a safe space to make that happen. Then the point that's not up there but is associated with the local wisdom piece is that we are full-on community engagement. So we believe the answers to our problems are outside the school doors. And by inviting people into our schools and by making our schools bringing our schools out to the community, those are where the answers are to serving young people in Albuquerque. So next to our business model or to our current market, as I mentioned, Albuquerque has a 62% graduation rate, and that drives the need for alternatives for adolescents in town. We need more choices. We need more choices that are rooted in the experience, the lives of kids, and the needs of our own community. We have clearly identified industry sectors in our community where we think that there's employment growth and where our young people can transition and they can find meaningful careers. And our entrepreneurship-focused school, Siembra, is the fourth school in that vision of schools that are connected to specific industry sectors. And it's the last clear niche for us. So we have a 5-school strategy, but the fourth school, the entrepreneurship-focused school, which was identified by our employers, by the way, as being the focus area for our next school, that's the last clear niche. We don't have another niche in mind, and we've kind of looked at all the employment and the economic development data, and there isn't another clear niche for us to build a school around, although we have a 5th school coming. So currently our model is really based on growth. So as we build new schools, we are able to raise the capital to build those new schools and then to support the infrastructure that makes them work. So we serve as a network hub for the 4 schools, and we're able to raise some money to support their development, but we're also able to raise a startup money, which gets those schools planted in the community. So our growth, so we're really focused on growth as our revenue engine, as a way for us to grow our organization. And the last thing is that I'm very proud of the fact that we have a proven track record with being able to create the most innovative schools, maybe, I think, in the country. You know, a lot of schools do project-based learning, they do relevant education, but they don't ask the community first what they want. They dream up the ideas in the school, and those schools could be placed anywhere. Like you could have a school in San Diego that's doing great project-based learning, but it's not connected to San Diego. It's connected to what the visions are of the teachers in the building. We ask the community, what's the most exciting thing happening in the community? And then we'll build projects around that. So we're very tied to relevancy to our own community, and I think that makes us actually more innovative than a lot of the work that's happening around the country. Great work that's happening around the country, but I think our lens on it makes us even more innovative and more relevant, I think, to Albuquerque, because we're really about community impact. We're about educating kids, but we're really about making the community a better place. And the more integrated we are into the community, the smarter the kids are going to be, the better better off our community is going to be. And so that's our vision of the future. Okay. So we have some dilemmas as we're thinking about our own future. So we have some choices. Do we try to move into the market of the traditional school district? So 90% of kids in Albuquerque go to traditional schools. 90% of high school kids go to traditional schools. Is our vision of what teaching and learning should be and of working with young people, does that belong in the larger market? Does it belong where all the kids are? There's some trade-offs with that. You have the least autonomy to innovate because you're in a big bureaucratic government system. And it has the most constraints. Right? You just have the 5-period day, math, English, science. It's always been that way. There's always been a bell. High school hasn't changed in 100 years. What makes us think we can make that change? The second choice is we can do more charters. We can create more charters. We can create more innovative outside the market. Outside the traditional system. School, we have very limited impact on the big system when we do that. But the 62% graduation rate says, hey, we need more alternatives in town to make that happen, or to fix that problem. So there's a ton of autonomy with that. There's the least constraints with that, but in some ways the least impact. Because our network will only reach 2,000 kids out of the 90,000 kids in Albuquerque. So our impact is limited. Then third, should we create some other vision? Should we run at a middle school strategy? Remember, our niche has been completed. We're at our 5th school, and we've already exhausted the niches that we think are out there for our new schools. So should we shift gears and should we move into middle schools where there's a lot of need as well? That's why we have a high dropout rate, is because we don't have great middle schools happening in town either. Or should we work with APS to try to carve out a niche in APS where we can do some innovation within the district? So take some of the constraints away, but you're on the inside, impacting from the inside out. So those are 3, well, actually they're really 4 things that we're thinking about in the next few years as we're thinking about our own strategy going forward. We've learned a ton about school design and a ton about how to work with the community, and we want to be in a space where we can make the most impact on our own community and make Albuquerque a better place. So I am going to stop here, and I'm going to invite Moises to come over for just a minute and share with you the 2 project ideas. So let me take a step back. So we need some help with that dilemma, and I'd love to talk to anybody who has any thoughts about what our strategy ought to be, those 4 choices. That's a dilemma that we're having now and wrestling with. But then I have Moises here, and we have 2 project ideas that came out of our work with the Albuquerque Soul that would be project ideas that we would use as prototypes through a project that we're doing at Atrisco Heritage with their 9th grade academy. What's this?
Good morning. Thank you, Tony. Like Tony said, I'm the new executive director of Siembra Leadership High School, which is an entrepreneurship-focused charter school in the South Valley. It's where I was born and raised and live, and I really came on board with this to have the opportunity to teach my neighbors' kids and to teach my own kids and to really make an impact in my community. My education background, I've been in education for the past 13 years as an administrator. Again, all my work has been very intentional in meeting the needs of South Valley education. Because I come from an educational background, we were very intentional in making sure that we picked Fat Pipe as an office, as a place to couch ourselves, so that we can really create some fidelity around the entrepreneurship sector here in Albuquerque. I just didn't want to be making stuff up as far as entrepreneurship. So we were making sure that we have part of our model is creating industry partners with folks in the community here in Albuquerque so that we can give our students the opportunity to have, through our project-based model, to have the opportunity to interact with what's happening with the boots on the ground here in Albuquerque. And so part of that is to develop these industry partners in the sector. And what we, like Tony mentioned before, we partnered with New Mexico Soul, and we're currently working to develop the prototype project for our model so that we can build off that to build the curriculum. And through that, Siembra Leadership High School, Atrisco Heritage Academy High School, and also partnered with Albuquerque Soul based on their conversation that they had here a few weeks ago. And we're currently working to answer these questions. And what we're going to do is we're going to be engaging the students at Atrisco Heritage Academy using our model and the needs of New Mexico Soul to be able to answer these questions. How does Albuquerque Soul successfully market their brand logo and remain relevant in order to increase attendance? This was one of the things that came through our brainstorming session on Monday. The second thing is, how do we use technology such as this to promote and enhance and create a trend? So our students at Atrisco Heritage are are going to be working on this project over the course of this next year. We're hoping to finish up in April, which will be the beginning of the soccer season for the Albuquerque Soul. And they're going to be engaging with Albuquerque Soul as a partner to create and develop a marketing strategy and a project based around these ideas. So giving our students that real-life learning and also having a real-life client and also using that entrepreneurial thinking and the entrepreneurial process within that framework. So it's a chance for us to really test and look at our model, what's working, what's not working, tapping the local wisdom. This is really a ground-up initiative, so we're using the voices of the folks and our partners to build our curriculum. There's not a textbook that can teach this. So we're listening to a really grassroots way of thinking about how do we build curriculum, how do we develop curriculum, and we're using this opportunity to kind of prototype that over the course of the next year.
Thanks, Moises. All right, thank you. That's so creative, isn't it? I mean, he's killing it. So thank you, Moises. I think that's our last slide, as a matter of fact. Excellent. Okay.
My question is this: how good are you? Do you have any proven outcomes that your schools really make a difference?
Yes. So we're able. So the oldest school is 5 years old. So it just had its first graduating class. We've been able to. We graduate 75 students out of 400 that attend the school. So our graduation rate is high. Our retention rates are really high. So we're able to hold on to kids because of the relevant learning that happens there. So yeah, I mean, we don't have longitudinal data, but we have a 5-year cohort that we can look at.
So what happened to those people that graduated?
So most of them transition into C&M, into their certificate program at C&M, or apprenticeship with the construction industry.
Did you measure that?
I'm sorry?
You measure that then?
Yeah. We're as a matter of fact, building a research platform now. We're working with some folks to build one now.
My point is, when you can prove outcomes, you can grow. But right now, a lot of what you're doing is betting on the come. And with schools, I think you've got to produce, because the Albuquerque Public Schools has a challenge. And just one other question: you guys are working with United Way on their project graduate.
Yeah, we do.
I'm going to go to your question. Part of the issue is the conversation in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the country is the outcomes are about standardized tests. And part of our narrative is that maybe that's actually not the outcome that should be measured. So we do have a challenge. So we have a challenge in proving some of our outcomes because even on the school report card, it talks about graduation rates in 4 years, not re-engagement rates. So one of the strengths of ACE, one of the strengths of health is the evening program. The old school is that when my kids weren't successful, these were the schools we turned to. So one of our challenges that we're working on with the support of McCune Foundation is new metrics. And what are the measures that we actually value as a community and we want to celebrate? So there are some traditional measures where we have success, but we have a gap in documenting that, but we are working with the larger education community to address that.
If I can just make a comment, obviously I'm from the Soul, but my stepdaughter actually goes to Health Leadership High School, and this was well before we had this relationship going, and she has developed so well over the last 2 years after going to their high school. Their method of conflict resolution is way better than any school she went to at APS, and I've been incredibly impressed with the staff of the school she goes to, so it's more of a compliment, and this was well before our relationships to each other.
So kind of backing up or going back to what he was just talking about, that is all about culture. And when you're talking about dropout rates and everything else that's going on, you're talking about interaction of the kids with the schools, with the teachers, with the programs. How do you, as you're building out all of these different things, change the just mindset of the students that are going to those classes every single day and interacting with adults that are changing the mindset of I don't want to learn to I really want to actively be learning and seeking out more information?
There's a lot of deprogramming that has to happen. So we really serve kids who are off track graduation, so they're behind in credits and they're likely to drop out, or they've dropped out and they're returning to school. So they've had bad experiences in school, and there's a pretty good stretch of time that's about deprogramming their prior experience and building trust with them so that they can come to school, understand it's a safe place, take some risks, healthy risks, in the school to be able to learn. Another thing that's, I think, important and really shouldn't be overlooked is that idea that if you're going to start asking kids about what their needs are, you better be built to respond to them, right? Once you take the lid off, it's like it mushrooms in front of you. And you need to be able to respond to that because there's this kind of sense of Maslow's hierarchy, right? You got to be able to get in there and work with them in a social, emotional, or physical health way. And that's part of the learning process, right? The pathway to learning is through that social and emotional support. And, some other things that we do that we provide, if y'all are familiar with DACA, the deferred action around immigration. We provide legal services for kids to be able to get through deferred action because that's a barrier. If you don't think that you'll ever be able to work, why would you be committed to go to school? So that kind of thing, that's part of the guts of the work is to be able to wrestle with significant challenges kids bring to school.
I'm going to add one structural thing. Our director of student support, which deals with the relationships and advisory curriculum, is on the same level of our director of curriculum and assessment. So in the pillars, all three directors, community engagement, instruction, and the 360 wraparound services are all equal priorities. And so we build that into the school, into the structure, and it's actually intentionally taught and measured.
First of all, congratulations on doing such important work in our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I listened to you go through the values, which I think are right on point. My question, or actually, I think your comment would be that to make this presentation more powerful, I would like to know from you personally, what are your values, what are your beliefs, what is your why for this?
Do you want me to tell you that now? Yeah. Oh, okay. I feel good about saying this on the. I feel good about saying this on the heels of the Pope's visit, but I'm from Albuquerque. I come from a Chicano family from northern New Mexico that was steeped in social justice and Catholic social teaching, and that's where my why comes from. I have a deep commitment to not just the kids in our community, but I live right by the fairgrounds. I go to the grocery store. I see what the impact is of having kids that are not graduating high school, and I live it every day. My kids go to public school. I'm from here. And I just can't. There's a great quote from this Jesuit priest that I know who said, never go to confession for what you've done. Go to confession for the things that you don't have the courage to do. And I think that carries the work that we do. It's courageous work, and you have to step up to it, and that's the basis. You're welcome.
So, is like all of the revenue from the state? How are you guys actually running this business?
So Moises, Justin, me, and Misty are all funded by philanthropy. So we have very generous local foundations that support our work. The schools are funded by the state. Yes. Yeah, thanks for that question. All the students transition to college before they graduate, and they'll have some college experience. So all the schools have a senior capstone project expectation, so they're all doing project work in the community. Part of that project work is taking a dual enrollment class as part of your that informs your project. So they all get college experience, typically through a certificate program.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And coming from the community, that was one of the things that when you a lot of times when you think about entrepreneurship, is that right? This kind of like capitalistic understanding of what it means to be, making the money. I want, especially with the kids, and you have that conversation with them. It's all about the money. It's all about that. But part of what we've developed, and we've been making sure before we built anything else, is how do we create a foundation and around those ideas. We've developed a set of ethos which are parked up in the back if you get a chance to go see them. And part of that is, not only are we going to teach how to create a business plan, how access to markets, access to capital, that kind of stuff, which is very important, and you need that. But then also, how do we look at alternative economic development models? How do we look at cooperatives? How do we look at other things that empower community rather than take away from community? So, before we're right now looking in the process of unpacking the charter and our policies and our organizational stuff, and we're really making sure that we're intentional in that those ethos are embedded in each one of the policies that we develop, so that when our students do graduate from Siembra, those are embedded in the way that they look and empower their community. So that is built in, and we're being very intentional in putting that into the way that we're running the school.
Yeah, thank you for that question. When we created the school, I don't know if you all are familiar with Amy Beale High School. I was the founder of that school, and we have 15 years of experience in understanding what's going on nationally. So a lot of the best ideas nationally were kind of synthesized into this model. And so it's informed by what the best work in the country is, but it's very locally driven. I might just say one more thing about that. I don't think you could do these schools anywhere else but Albuquerque. I'm really proud of the fact that it's happening in Albuquerque. But I really don't think you could do this in other places. People have come here to see what our schools are doing, but they can't imagine a network of schools like this. And the reason they can't imagine a network of schools like this is because, A, in other places, they think about kids as being problems. They don't think about kids as being assets to be nurtured. They think about them as problems. And they can't imagine that kind of relationship with a kid to grow the human capital in their own community. So they can't imagine teaching those leadership skills to kids who are potential dropouts. Because why would you? They're problems. They're not assets to be nurtured. So that's a huge problem in other places around the country, and it's why people can't get their mind around the model. And the second thing is, I think that because we're all 2 degrees of separation, you can do what we did on Monday, where you can bring the soccer team in and you can build a project, and then you can execute it, the next year, or you can get all these corporate people to come in and help you think about what the future is. And I do believe it's about Albuquerque. I do believe that that's true about this town. And I know it because when other people come to try to do what we're doing, they can't get their brain around what's happening. They do great project work, but it's not tethered to what the community is asking for. And that's what makes us special, I think. That's what makes this town special and makes this initiative special.
And I think actually that's sort of an awesome way to wrap this up. We've got a couple of special announcements, but the last question we always ask is, how can they learn a little bit of a deviation because you have an event coming up, but how can they learn more about what you're doing and what's going on, and how can the community help you?
Do you want to say
How the community can help us. Like I mentioned earlier, we were very at the very beginning. We were trying to figure out office space, and Tony's like, let's go check out Fat Pipe. Thinking about the entrepreneurship stuff, and really, like I said, I'm an education background person, so making sure that we bring in that entrepreneurial lens, especially with the folks that have the boots on the ground here in Albuquerque. The things that we need help with right now, Siembra especially, is we need industry partners to help. We have summits to help develop the curriculum in the schools. We build a curriculum from the ground up every summer in this project-based system. So the more industry partners that we have that can help feed what that looks like, what are projects on the ground, what are real-life things that are happening here in Albuquerque that can help inform us so that we give our students the best possible real hands-on learning that's possible. That's one of the things that we can that we can use as Siembra is to create and develop those industry partners with folks like you all.
We have an event coming. We have a launch event for our own organization on November 19th. We're going to be debuting a film at the Hispanic Cultural Center. It's from 4 to 6:30, and we'd love it if people would like to come and learn about how to transform schools. It's a beautiful film. It's a Sundance Award-winning film about education and the transformation, and that work is actually happening in your own community, and I think at a level that is more innovative than what's happening in other places. So November 19th at Hispanic Cultural Center, 4 to 6:30.
Thank you very much. And we'll hand it
Thank you. Thank you. Let's see. We've got a couple announcements. Sabio Systems. Is there? There he is. All right, here you go.
Hi, my name is David Miles with Sabio Systems. Excuse me. We are a staffing firm that specializes in information technology professions, and once a month we hold a IT networking event called Tech Night Out. And this month our presenter is the co-founder and president of RiskSense, and he will be talking about digital footprints, cybersecurity, and social media. So you are all invited. It will be on October 27th at 6 o'clock at the Greater Albuquerque Chamber of Commerce.